These Holley 3.5-inch screens are both awesome and a total disaster at the same time. Let's cover 3 reasons why these things are great and then also why they suck. And it's definitely one of those the pros come with some cons kind of scenarios. The first reason that it is awesome is just the simplicity of it. You can take your Holley EFI system out of the box, can connect a handful of wires, plug this little screen in, answer a series of questions about your setup, and assuming that you told the screen the truth and you installed everything correctly, your engine is actually going to start and run 9 times out of 10 without you even having to have any type of EFI tuning experience. So that is definitely pretty cool and super helpful to a lot of people. Now, the first reason that it sucks, ironically, is also the same thing that makes it awesome, which is the simplicity of it again. If you have a very mild build, this thing's going to get you pretty close more often than not, but the more modified your setup is, the more radical and aggressive the cam is, the bigger the injectors are, things like that, the further away that this wizard tune that this little screen produced is actually going to be. So a simple, mild, basic setup, this thing might work great, and the further and further you get away from that, just the further and further away that this is going to be. I do really wish that these 3.5-inch screens were marketed as kind of like a use this screen to get yourself up and running to test for leaks before you actually have the system tuned, rather than calling it self-tuning. Within the software, there's probably 100 different tables and settings, and the self-tuning ability of this actually only covers one of all of those settings. So even if your car runs well with the wizard tune and the 3.5-inch screen and the learn and all of that, you're still just taking advantage of a very small percentage of what the system is actually capable of. So you paid for a lot and you're using a little bit of it. So your entire experience could be so much better if this little screen is all that you're using. So the only reason I can see somebody not wanting to use the laptop-based software is that they open it up for the first time, they take a look around, and then they just immediately get intimidated on where to start. But once you have a little bit of guidance on where to start and what kind of order to work in, it sort of breaks it down into smaller chunks and sections, and a lot of that intimidation kind of goes away. So to help out those of you who are just getting started with your Holley EFI system, I've actually made an 8-step roadmap breaking down your workflow for getting started with using the software. It's actually in a PDF format, so you can print it out. Might make it a little bit easier for you guys to kind of navigate that. And this is absolutely free, so just click on the link in the description and I'll send that over to you. This thing took me like 12 hours or something ridiculous to make, so hopefully you guys find it helpful. All right, so the second reason this little handheld is awesome is you plug in just one little tiny connector. You don't even need to hook up a separate power or ground wire, which is awesome. Just plug in that one little tiny connector. Without having a laptop with you, you have the ability to look at basically all of your engine sensors real time and monitor what's going on. But, and this is actually a really big but, that also leads into the second reason that it sucks, and really the whole reason that I wanted to make this video. The second reason that this little screen sucks is people seem to completely quit enjoying their car altogether and just simply stare at this damn screen every single second that they're behind the wheel of their car and frantically just take pictures of the screen and then put them all over the internet and email them to everybody on earth, asking things like, are my numbers okay? I can't stress this enough, but sending an actual data log is so much more helpful than taking a still picture of a screen with a few values on it. You really can't tell much of anything from that. And all exaggerating aside, I bet I've seen a minimum of 1,000 posts on the internet of people taking a picture of the screen and saying things like, my IAC goes to 40% when I'm driving, and then like totally lose their shit thinking that their entire car is going to burst into flames or explode or something. Now, meanwhile, while all this happening, the car is just driving perfectly fine, but because their eyes are glued on this dumb screen, they think that the car is broken, and as a result of that, they're getting basically zero enjoyment out of driving the car because they think they need to race home before the thing quits driving altogether. And yes, the IAC position will go to 40% when you start driving. There is a setting called IAC hold position, and once you start driving, your TPS goes above 2% throttle. This value and what you're going to see your IAC hold position go to is going to be whatever you have programmed for this IAC hold position, and the default value is usually 40, so that's more than likely what you're going to see unless you go in and manually change it. Now, the third reason that this little handheld screen is awesome, and even better than a Pro Dash for a scenario like this, is that you can actually use the handheld to unbrick an ECU if you have some sort of an issue while doing a firmware update or something like that. The 3.5-inch screen that you've seen throughout throughout this video is actually mine. I do not have a specific use for it or a specific car that it goes in or anything like that. I just keep it on hand in case I ever need to fix a bricked ECU. Thankfully, I have never had an ECU that I was unable to fix, but 99% of the time I have no issues updating firmware just directly from the laptop, which is actually my preferred method on doing firmware updates. But either way, I still just keep this screen on hand in case I am ever in a situation where I need it. Now, the third reason that the 3.5-inch screen sucks is that it's too damn small to use as a dash or like a replacement for a Pro Dash, which is fine because I actually like being able to mount them somewhere kind of inconspicuous out of the way where you don't have to stare at it all the time, like a glove box or something like that. In which case, at that point, it's nice because it's not right in front of your face, but you can get to it and look at it when you need to. So it might sound like I'm kind of contradicting myself here, but hear me out. The 3.5-inch screen actually comes with the Sniper and the Terminator X kits, basically making it free. So it's just crazy to me that we can essentially get this 3.5-inch screen for free. But if you go to the 686 Pro Dash, it's roughly 3 inches bigger, but it's roughly $27,000 more expensive. And the problem with that is kind of that it makes the small screen seem like a tease. They're obviously capable of making something, more simple and more inexpensive than a Pro Dash, but you don't really have much of an in-between option there. The 7-inch dash is outdated. Have they discontinued that yet? I don't think they have, but definitely doesn't seem to be supported quite as well as the Pro Dash is. So the 7-inch dashes are just kind of out of the conversation at this point. And then the 686 dash is so expensive compared to the 3.5-inch screen. And then the 12-inch dash is somehow more expensive than half of the cars that it ends up in, which is kind of crazy. And then to kind of really put it into perspective is you can go to the store and you can buy a 70-inch smart TV that's like literally half of the price of a 12-inch Pro Dash. I feel like a majority of the people buying, a 686 Pro Dash use basically none of the features that make a Pro Dash a Pro Dash. So they pay kind of like all this money for all these cool features that they don't need or use. So they just have a really expensive display. I almost feel like they should make like a 686 amateur dash and eliminate all of the pro stuff altogether and, just make it one screen. We don't need to be able to swipe through, and you can just program how you want to lay out your gauges, maybe throw like a background picture on it or something simple like that, and just make it half the price. I bet they'd sell 1 million of those. Like I say, I know kind of contradicting myself if I'm telling you not to stare at this thing and then also talking about using it as a dash, but what's really weird is it seems like the people with Pro Dashes actually just use them as a display, like a replacement for gauges, and they don't get obsessed with just continuously staring at the screen like the people with the 3.5-inch screens do. And I haven't necessarily figured out what the difference is there. I don't know if it's the way that you can just lay out the displays of the screens, or maybe it's even the items that they choose to look at, or it's a experience thing. Maybe the guys with the Pro Dashes just have been doing this longer and they know that if your IAC position's at 40%, you're not gonna die. So yeah, I'm not sure. But either way, I think something in between a Pro Dash and this 3.5-inch dash, price-wise and then functionality-wise, just give something super simple. I think that would be very helpful to a lot of people. But anyways, so I guess the big takeaway here is if your car is running fine, just pay less attention to the 3.5-inch screen and just go actually have fun and enjoy your car. Once it starts running bad or doing something weird, there's hesitations, hiccups, something like that, maybe then start kind of diving into the 3.5-inch screen and using that to kind of start your troubleshooting process. Or even better yet, use the laptop software and take some actual proper data logs, load them up into the software and actually use the data log viewer. Just everything to do with the laptop-based software is so much better for basically everything. So if you just spend a little bit of time familiarizing yourself with it, it's just going to kind of overall make your entire purchase of your Holley EFI system so much better, and you're actually going to take advantage of what you paid for. So this is actually my car, and I have a 686 dash. I have a 3.5-inch screen, and I have a 12-inch dash. But the 12-inch dashes are always just too big to fit anywhere. And again, I just don't like having all this stuff in my face all the time. So I actually prefer putting things like this in center consoles and stuff like that. So you can still see it, but it's not directly in your face. So you don't have to pay attention to it if you don't want to. But let's see how much bigger this is than the 3.5-inch screen. So it's height-wise, it's nearly the same. It's just twice as wide. I don't necessarily think that justifies having to pay so much more money for it if you're not using kind of all that it has to offer. Obviously this thing does way more than that and a bunch of cool stuff and way more configurable and programmable. So if you want all of that, it's perfect. But you know, for the people that just simply want to look at a display, I feel like there should be another option in the mix. Let's go look at a 12-inch dash. This is a 12-inch dash. I feel like these videos never really put it into perspective how big they are. So if you look at the little 3.5-inch screen, it takes up like one corner. And these do all kinds of cool stuff. I mean, you can flip through different screens and whatnot, but man, these 12-inch dashes are really expensive. I don't necessarily see why they need to be so much, especially for the guys that are wanting to connect this to kind of the entry-level systems. If you got a Dominator and $30,000 worth of electronics in the car, then proportionally it makes more sense to spend on something like this, but hooking this to a Terminator X or a Sniper just seems a little bit weird based on the price alone.